balanced sport. What's I'm sure you would argue is your favorite sport. Major League Baseball. We're talking playoffs. My colleague over at Championship Rings, I do a show with now every Tuesday night. As you guys know, that link will be in the description below, as we are collaborative with Voltage Live on this podcast. My colleague Josh Unger picked the Milwaukee Brewers to win the whole thing. They're out already. Sorry, Josh. If it was that,
Brandon Woodruff's injury really threw a wrench into things. Woodruff's injury earlier in the year after a couple starts threw a wrench into a lot of my fantasy season because there were a few. For the last 4 weeks, I needed to win one fantasy matchup to get a first round bye, and I would have got into the title game if I had that first round bye. I am so ticked off because it's like I started off like 12-6, finished the regular season 12-10, had the 3 seed, got beat. I'm like, this just sucks because I had all the perfect scenarios line up. And mainly because Woodruff was out, there was a couple weeks where like I needed him and one of my pitchers just sucked. But like I'm usually really good at identifying pitching. This year I was just really great at identifying hitters. That's unusual for me. I'm usually worse at identifying hitters, even though I'm a hitter. I'm just good at picking out who the breakout stars for the pitching side are, just because I know just how much they get battered around by hitters. But I mean, I did post like a little mini thread of how I saw the postseason going. So I'm going to own up to some mistakes right now. So I think I want to double check what it was, but go on.
Before you get there, real quick, I'm just gonna throw out what my World Series prediction was, and you can break it down all you want because you're the baseball guy. I trust you on this. I had Houston going back to back, but I had them defeating the Braves.
You had them beating the Braves. The thing is that I can't really, like, Houston got really lucky, I feel like, to get that that bye round. I mean, they just don't feel that imposing compared to even a year ago or a couple of years ago. Like, they just feel off. Like the Braves, like they feel like how Houston would feel the last few years. Like in the AL wildcard round, I was wrong as heck on Toronto, but I nailed on Texas. The wild cards, I got Philly right, and I wanted to pick Arizona, but I leaned towards Milwaukee just because I was under the assumption that Woodruff would be available. That would have changed everything for me. But I mean, I really, really wanted to pick Arizona. I almost went with Arizona, but I just couldn't pull the trigger. But, I mean, the Braves are who I think I have the Braves as being my pick to win the whole dang thing. I mean, they just that whole lineup, and I saw it in action back when they were here. And it was the game where Cleveland came back and won, I'm pretty sure, if I remember right. And I mean, but that lineup that the Braves had and still have, it's absurd. Like you cannot, like, any pitcher, no matter if you have an ace reliever, ace starter on the mound, there's no rest. You literally are facing an all-star lineup. Like, it's not like it's almost as, I could say maybe it's like the 95, 97 Indians. Like it's that good.
Well, they have the pitching to go along with it. That's
that's the scariest thing. So with the ALDS, obviously Toronto knocked out, but I had them in Baltimore advancing for an ALCS series. But I don't know who I'm going to pick between Minnesota and Houston.
It's Houston. Minnesota can't hang with Houston.
Royce Lewis is the X factor for Minnesota. Like Houston, I'm just telling you, there's something that feels off about them. I don't know if I'm hoping I'm wrong or I don't know what, just something feels weird about Houston. I don't know. The NLDS, obviously Milwaukee's out. So with that said, I think I'm going to lean with Arizona to continue their wild card run because the Dodgers have not had a pitcher top, I don't think, 150 innings this year. Not one. That's where I get a little bit concerned. Like that's something that concerns me, that now that Milwaukee's out and they are not able to advance to the next round, I would pick Arizona to maybe beat the Dodgers. And that one might be a very risky pick, but it's what I'm willing to make. I obviously have the Braves beating the Phillies, but that one could go south really fast. I mean, you just saw what the Phillies did to Miami. But I I I had I had Toronto coming out of the ALCS and coming out of the AL. That was a horrible pick. But
So
now that we know
it's
who it is,
interesting
I
to
think
me.
Baltimore might actually arrive a year early. Baltimore might be
Yeah.
the team that gets through. If with the teams that we have left in the postseason, it might be Baltimore or Atlanta, and I would still lean Atlanta. Like
Uh,
Baltimore's got some really good talent, especially on the infield. Like you've got at catcher, you got Rushman, like shortstop, third base, capable player with Henderson. I mean, you've got some young guns. Just like this rebuild has been faster than I thought. I hope they're not like the Guardians of last year, where it's like, they're going to hit a really rough patch. But like Kyle Bradish, he has been a diamond in the rough for them that they have found. If you're a guy who's got a dynasty league and you have him on your roster, keep him. He is a guy who I could see maybe having more of a breakout next year, like true breakout, because he really surprised me. He was a solid pickup down the stretch. Like they don't have the pitching to keep up with Atlanta with their bats, but an Orioles Braves World Series color me intrigued. It's just Houston. I don't know what to think of them right now. They
so
just don't feel that. I don't feel that dominating presence. Texas, the arms worry me, and then Minnesota is a wild card in a way, but we'll see how it goes. Again, MLB season, it's a crapshoot sometimes, especially when you get to the postseason. It's who's hot, who's not.
two quick things. One, I find it fascinating that in the National League, the two divisional round matchups are division matchups. Phillies, Braves, Diamondbacks, Dodgers.
Mm,
So
yeah,
that to me is fascinating. Second point is it's and I know they had a bunch of pitching injuries this season, but how wild is it? Tampa got off to the best start. I believe it was in the
that was
history of
yeah,
Major League Baseball.
yep. And I think they had that homer streak too before the Braves one started to come along. I mean, that
And
was insane.
not only did they get off to the best start in MLB history, Sean, they didn't win 100 games. They didn't even win their division. They
But
didn't even win
there's
a playoff game.
I want to say this: Wander Franco not only screwed the Rays, but
Yeah,
he screwed himself if
yes,
the
he did.
allegations are proven true, if they're true. Because if what Trevor Bauer posted the other day is all factually correct, we know that people can make stuff up. And I usually lean more towards uh the victims, but obviously I'm gonna wait to withhold judgment on Franco, but oh my god, him not being on that field definitely changed how they could play. I mean, him in that lineup lengthens that lineup significantly. I don't know if it changes that whole series, but my goodness, that could have been the difference between having a first round bye and getting knocked out of the postseason like they did.
And in a year when the Yankees are down, and you know, and I know the Yankees are never going to be down for long,
Oh,
they're going to be right back next year. I almost guarantee it. They're going to find a way to spend. They'll get their pitching right. They'll get some more bats right. You know, and
and
I
yet
know
they
the
still finish above 500. Dang it.
the Yankees are going to be somewhere back next year. That AL East is very competitive. All five teams are better than every team in the AL Central. Somebody had to win that division in the AL Central. Um, we'll just see. The American League is turning it into the AFC of baseball. I mean,
Don't be
Houston.
surprised about Detroit next year. I think Spencer
No, I mean,
Torkelson is going to be
we
cool,
we
is
both
on
have
the
been
cusp.
we both have kept saying Detroit's coming, Detroit's coming, Detroit's coming.
Uh,
Cleveland,
and
depending
their
on
pitchers are
who,
finally getting healthy too.
yep,
That is the big thing.
and
Struble,
you
Mize,
know,
those guys.
and Cleveland, depending on who their manager is, and I think those kids are going to get better. I think that they're going to be a better team next year. I think a playoff fringe team. I mean, you have, Baltimore, Toronto, Tampa, Yankees, Boston, Houston, Seattle, Texas, Minnesota, Cleveland, Detroit. That's like 11 teams next year that I think realistically, and who knows with the Angel situation, what happens with Otani. I mean,
I
we're
want everyone to look me
talking
in the eyes. Paul Dolan, David Blitzer, go get me Cody
there. Yeah.
Bellinger. No,
Okay.
you are not going to get me not just any random bat. Get me Bellinger. He can play first base. He's a great center fielder, and he can play the corners if needed. Give me Bellinger. Give me the bat. I was pounding the table for him last winter. I will do so again, no matter how irrationally it means.
Anyways, we're talking 10, 11 teams that can make the playoffs next year. So very fascinating time indeed. We'll see how the playoffs all shake out. Like that clip from the Brains World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brains World podcast right here on YouTube.